All right, welcome in everyone. I hope you're having a great evening. Just as I mentioned before, we do have a sign-in sheet if any of your professors offered extra credit, but we really thank everyone for being here and joining us here tonight. So again, thanks for joining us here at our second event of the Grad Speaker Series. Before we get into this event, we really want to thank everyone who helped put this event on, especially the Tim Russer Department of Communication and the Edward Muldoon Center for Entrepreneurship for funding this event. More specifically, we wholeheartedly thank Dr. Finucane, Dr. Bonda, Dr. Winkle, and all of their faculty members who helped make this event possible. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Grad Speaker Series, it is a series of community events that highlights the stories of John Carroll's senior class. Throughout the series, seniors will share stories of how they have been shaped into men and women with and for others. First tonight, we will hear from Ray Flannery, a native of Hinckley, Ohio. Ray's a senior at John Carroll University, double majoring in sociology and Spanish. On campus, Ray has served as a senior resident assistant in Malore Hall, a member of the CSSA student leadership team, a competitor on the speech and debate team, as well as a member of the honors program. After graduation, Ray will be pursuing a master's of public health. Join me in welcoming Ray Flannery.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Brady. As I was contemplating what I wanted to share with you all for tonight's speech, I thought back to freshman year, because after all, that was the first year that our class spent the entirety of the year on campus. I thought about my freshman experience and wondered what freshman Ray had to say about the college experience. I thought maybe freshman Ray had some advice for senior Ray, and wanted to dig a little bit into the archives to see how freshman Ray felt about college. So I went back to my Twitter feed, all the way back to fall of 2018, and I'd like to share a few tweets with you right now. So on October 17th of 2018, I tweeted, "I was talking so loud in my sleep last night that I woke even myself up. Hashtag sorry roommates." Aiden and Chris, if you're here tonight, I'm still sorry about that one. On December 21st, 2018, during my first college final exam week, I tweeted, "I had a dream last night that my only college final was to make ramen noodles in the most creative way. So I added hot chocolate and chocolate sauce, and hot sauce. Hashtag college things. If only that had been my real only final exam." But one tweet in particular stands out because the lesson still holds up today. In my freshman wisdom, I tweeted on October 25th, 2018, "Just remember, even if you only reap a single grain of wheat today, one day you'll have enough grains to say, 'You got that bread.'" All kidding aside, I think this metaphor speaks to the nature of John Carroll. Many ingredients coming together to make something pretty cool. The many ingredients that form that bread, and as many of you may know, I love a good metaphor and I love a good pun. So tonight, I want to give you a breadaphor. While there's no recipe for what makes a person successful in college, I have two slices of advice for all of you tonight. The first being that we must look at the small moments that make up the ingredients of our experience. And secondly, don't loaf around. Get the most out of all your experiences. So first and foremost, when you think about bread, it begins as dough. And dough is comprised of many different ingredients. Many smaller ingredients come together and rise up to become what it's meant to be, a loaf of bread. Similarly, we must do the same when looking at the small moments that shape our experiences in college, and use those experiences to enhance our life. Oftentimes, when we think about college, we think of the best 4 years of our life. We're told that it's the time for many firsts, and those are big moments. This I consider to be the wheat and flour that's the base of the bread. For me, that was my first flight ever, when freshman year I traveled to California for the National Speech and Debate Competition, or my first time traveling out of the country on my immersion trip with Brady to El Salvador and the US-Mexico border back in January 2020. It's also the many service drives I led as a student liaison, and of course, the biggest event we've all lived through, the COVID pandemic over the last 2 years. But college is a lot more than these big moments, and much like bread, it needs the small ingredients too. The yeast, for instance, is only a small fraction of the recipe in bread, but without it, you cannot rise up the dough. Similarly, you can't rise to become a better person in college without recognizing the value of those day-to-day interactions that you have. For me, those are the times that I spent late at night painting the lion with friends or jumping in the fountain when I wasn't supposed to. It's also the snowball fight that I got roped into my freshman year while I was sitting in a study hall in Campion Lounge and some upperclassmen threw snowballs in the window and we rushed outside to retaliate against them. It's also the story of Milky Malore, where my roommate Aiden and I, for our sophomore year, in the room 247, would stick Oreo cookies out the window and pour coffee creamer on them to give them that milky taste. Those are the moments that I want to remember. It's also the time I played President Mikiak and his wife in cornhole last fall and lost in quadruple overtime while the sun was setting and it got too dark to even see the board anymore. It's also the time that I found real human teeth in our rental car van out in California. True story, and I'm still scarred from that to this day. It's also the day I experienced last fall for RA Move-In Day, when we were sitting around the hall office, bored out of our minds, and decided to stuff balloons in the ceiling, because why not? It's also the time when last month one of the RAs on my staff, who will remain nameless, brought in a trampoline for our hall office to just relieve some stress and bounce around whenever we felt like it. But it's not just the happy small moments that matter, because the small moments are sometimes hard. For instance, when I received the email in fall of 2021 that we were going to be remote for an entire semester, I was on the main quad with some RA friends. When I got that news, a friend and I, Leanna Nasrallah, walked pacing around the main quad, just processing our thoughts. The small moments were also those 15 minutes of anxiety I sat through time and time again in the student center, waiting for my COVID test results to hopefully come back negative. Thankfully, they always did. But others weren't so fortunate. And that's why the COVID pandemic, which is inevitably part of all of our experiences, is so important to address tonight. But John Carroll also helped me get through this tough time, as my semester at home was spent receiving care packages from faculty and the staff in CSSA to uplift me and help me feel valued in the John Carroll community. Those are the instances where I know that I'm where I'm supposed to be and I feel like a member of the community, whether I'm at home or here on campus. Which leads me to my second piece of advice for all of you. Don't loaf around and instead get the most out of your experience. My friends this year know that I've been saying this mantra. It's squeeze the juice out of senior year. Now, I know what you're thinking, 2 metaphors, what's going on there? But I already told you I love metaphors, so just go with it, please. So I've made a commitment to myself, because of all the things that I've lost over the course of the pandemic, to really try and get every drop out of senior year that I can, which is what led me to take weekly yoga classes with Alana Oakley in the rec center. It's also what led me to going out for tacos and countless margaritas many times throughout this year with friends on a regular basis. Squeezing the juice out of this year meant going for the dragon boating competition in Cleveland and taking first place in the youth division. Mind you, all of the other teams were at least 30 years our senior, but that's neither here nor there. To me, squeezing the juice out of senior year was stepping foot on Cabby D for the first and only time, much to the surprise of many of my classmates, because I also joined a Harry Potter book club this year, so I'm also a nerd. I have dedicated myself to rewatching these Harry Potter movies and rereading the books with friends, and also trying to just do everything while I can while I'm still here. I was at the Saxby's grand opening and try to go there pretty much every day for a cup of coffee or a grilled cheese sandwich, just to take everything I can while I'm still here. Squeezing the juice out of my senior year also meant rejoining the speech and debate team after I had left the activity during the pandemic, rekindling a love for something that I once had, and giving me an opportunity to reconnect with old friends. Lastly, squeezing the juice out of the senior year for me meant spending lots of late nights in the RA duty office in Malore Hall with the insomniacs on our staff. And let me just tell you right now, the Malore RAs do not sleep, and now neither do I. But I engaged in so many good, deep conversations those evenings, and I wouldn't change that for the world. So when people ask me how I changed as a result of these experiences at John Carroll, I have grown immensely from a number of these experiences. Through service drives and working as an RA, I grew so much during my time here. I learned how to care for myself as a whole person and applied this lesson to myself and others. I've been stretched to seek out new opportunities and challenge the status quo at John Carroll. And I am more well-rounded as a thinker and a learner as a result of the diverse classes I exposed myself to here. When asked what my biggest takeaway from John Carroll is, I'd say it's that I learned how to incorporate the needs of others into whatever I'm doing at any given moment, placing myself in the context of my world. In conclusion, I would not be where I am today without acknowledging some of the people who have shaped me as a person and giving them the recognition they deserve. From my parents and family to my academic advisors, my supervisor, my girlfriend, my friends and supporters, and of course the Grad team. Thank you all for shaping me as a person and helping lend me a voice to share my experiences with you today. I'd like to close by reminding you of 3 key takeaways today. First, take those ingredients, build your dough from the big and the small moments, and soak them in to become the bread that you must rise up to be. Next, don't loaf around and squeeze the juice out of every experience you can. And finally, I challenge all of you to go out there and get that bread. Thank you.
Well done, Ray. You're truly one of a kind, and we thank you for sharing your experiences with us. Our second speaker tonight will be Caitlin Drake. Caitlin is a senior from Stowe, Ohio, majoring in early childhood education with minors in Spanish and peace, justice, and human rights. Caitlin has been very involved on campus, serving as a CSS liaison, a member of the Chi Omega Executive Board, and a member of the Arupe Scholars Program. She was part of an immersion to Ecuador and served as the student coordinator for the U.S.-Mexico border immersion. Currently, she's a student teacher at Urban Community School. Please join me in welcoming Caitlin Drake.
Through my time at John Carroll, I have grown immensely. I have learned more about myself, developed career goals, and most significantly, have learned what gratitude and joy are in a deeper way, and have learned how to find God in all things. In high school, I found the Pedro Arupe prayer to be really powerful, in a way that I wanted to live my life. Every single day in high school, we heard the prayer over the announcements. It was something that I wanted to do, something I strived to do in my life. But through my time at John Carroll, and as an Arupe scholar, I have learned to not only want to live that prayer out in my life, but how to actually live that prayer out in my daily life. If you're not familiar with the prayer, I'll read it now. Nothing is more practical than finding God, than falling in love in a quite absolute and final way. What you are in love with, what seizes your imagination, will affect everything. It will decide what will get you out of bed in the morning, what you do with your evenings, how you spend your weekends, what you read, whom you know, what breaks your heart, and what amazes you with joy and gratitude. Fall in love, stay in love, and it will decide everything. What breaks your heart and what amazes you with joy and gratitude. I'm going to say it again. What breaks your heart and what amazes you with joy and gratitude. Clearly, I'm a future teacher if you haven't caught on by the emphasis pulling that line a couple of times, reading it, right? Making it stick in your brain. Pause. Think about those words. I really want you to think about what amazes you with joy and gratitude. What does joy and gratitude mean? And how can we live out joy and gratitude? Through my time at John Carroll, I have learned what gratitude is and joy, and how to be filled with those every single day through Christ. Now, don't get me wrong, I knew what gratitude was before this. But for the most part, my idea of gratitude was just being thankful for what we have, specifically on Thanksgiving. You know, when your mom has that really good idea to go around the table, say what you're thankful for, right? And you start saying, like, family, friends, everybody's rolling their eyes now, right? Cousins are doing it. And then all of a sudden you're up next. Mom tells you, you can't repeat answers now. Now you're even more upset because your sister just said she's thankful for the car. Your dad already said he's thankful for the house. What are you thankful for? You're really stumped now. Well, because of my time at John Carroll, and especially because of my immersion trip to Ecuador, I can come up with copious amounts of reasons why I am filled with gratitude and joy. Now, some days it's really easy for me to find gratitude and joy. Other days I struggle and suffer to find those moments. Right after my freshman year, May 2019, I boarded a plane with just a carry-on suitcase for a week in Ecuador, thinking it was going to be like any other ordinary service trip, that I'd be going to Ecuador to learn about poverty and maybe do a service project for 7 days. I was completely and utterly wrong. On this immersion trip, daily we entered the homes of families, living in the deepest of poverty, surrounded by injustices, and I didn't do a single service project to help them. Instead, the goal of the immersion was to learn about these injustices, change our hearts, and look beyond our own perspective, share stories of the lessons we learned. Our only job was to build relationships with these people that we had met, hear their stories. And this entire week in Ecuador, I was overflowing with happiness, gratitude, and Christ's love. My heart was set completely on fire. To set the scene a bit, the community we lived with in Ecuador lives in severe poverty, like I said. In fact, more than I had anticipated to experience. Homes were built from cane. If there was another bedroom, it was a curtain or a sheet to hang to divide the rooms. There's no Wi-Fi. There's no electricity. There's no running water. Water comes from water trucks weekly. If it rains, if there's a flood, who knows when the water truck will come. And most households live off of $2 a day. To live in solidarity with the community we'd spend our week with, we lived very simply. Again, packing only a carry-on suitcase. If you know me, I can easily pack a 50-pound suitcase, even if it's just for 2 days. We didn't have our phones. We wore the same pair of pants for a couple of days, and we didn't wear any makeup. There were no snacks, no candy, very simple meals. It was in Ecuador where I was stripped of everything but the bare necessities that I needed to live, and that's when I felt most happy. I struggled returning home because I was going back to such a glamorous lifestyle, so different and privileged than what I had experienced in Ecuador. But I almost felt like I wasn't truly happy with all of those things. How is it that I had all these materials stripped away from me that I was my happiest? It was because I learned how to find real gratitude in real things, not just those fake made-up things that people buy that create happiness, in the real things. I found gratitude in the relationships I built with the people in Ecuador, the people on my immersion from John Carroll, the memories, the laughs, the smiles, the tear, the fear, and Christ. When I walked into a home of a family of 5 who shared one queen-size bed, or heard the story of a father who left his children and his wife who both had serious medical conditions, and so many other stories, it felt like somebody had taken my heart, ripped it out, stomped on it, and torn it to pieces. But then I listened to stories of these same people who had so little, who felt such injustice in their communities, that told stories of bravery, told stories of hope, of faith, of gratitude, and of love, that my heart was pieced back together and set on fire. If people living in the deepest poverty could find and express joy daily, then why couldn't I? I finally understood what it meant to be heartbroken, but amazed with joy and gratitude. Heartbroken, but amazed with joy and gratitude. Gratitude comes from love. Gratitude comes from those around us. We find gratitude when we can fully live in the present moment, take away all those other distractions, focus on what we are grateful for and those things that aren't material objects, those things in which we can find pure joy. Okay, but you're probably sitting here thinking, that was just 1 week or 7 days of your John Carroll experience. How has that made a greater impact? Well, Ignatian spirituality asks us to find God in all things. For me, finding God means looking deeper than the surface level at the moments throughout our day and reflecting upon those, embracing those. Embracing those moments allows for us to find Christ's love through the joy and the thankfulness. I now fully embrace those moments of joy, moments of laughter, and moments of peace, while I also embrace those moments of sadness, moments of frustration, and moments of suffering. It'd be super cool if everyone walked away tonight thinking of exactly where they found joy or exactly where they found gratitude today in a deeper way. But the reality is some days we're going to struggle. Some days it's going to be hard to find joy and gratitude. And although it's been my goal to find those, it hasn't been an easy task. Yes, there are nights I go to bed struggling to find joy in the day. Yes, there are nights I go to bed surrounded by so much, but feeling like I have so little, struggling to find what I'm grateful for. But for why? It's something that I'm frustrated with in myself. I'd be lying if I said my time here at John Carroll was easy, or that every single day I'm filled with happiness and gratitude. Maybe it looks that way from the outside. Maybe it looks like it's been easy for me to be so involved, to have many leadership positions, to have an internship, to be a future teacher, to be a full-time student. But with all of that has come much challenge, a need to be resilient and rise up for what I stand in and for what I want to see happen in our world, to become stronger in who I am and learn how to cope with mental health challenges. And although it is challenging and I struggle many times, I'm grateful for the sadness. I'm grateful for the loneliness, for the tears that I cry. I'm grateful for those moments because they make me who I am. They've made my John Carroll experience what it is. Because it's not always glamorous, it's not always beautiful, it's not always happy. That's life. Now as a senior, I know I'm just a few weeks away from graduating, and those moments of heartbreak and joy and gratitude I'm looking for every single day as I walk through campus. Because I know I'm going to be heartbroken when I leave. I know I'm going to shed tears when I move out of my house with Meg and Mary and Olivia. It's going to be so sad. Especially because all three of us are moving to different states after graduation. Going to be hours away from each other. It's not going to be easy. That's why I stopped to embrace those moments when we laugh till we cry together. When we watch Encanto for like the third or fourth time, even though we're, 22? It's a great movie. Those moments where in the morning where we're hustling and bustling around the house, passing each other through the kitchen, up and down the staircase. I love those moments. We only have a few of those left. There are also only a few more times that I walk through campus, waving and saying hi to people that I know. That's why I take an extra moment to stop, say hi to those people, ask them how they're doing. What are their plans after graduation? Because you might not see those faces again. It's the small moments that bring pure happiness, smiles, laughs, and sunshine, when I recognize what has amazed us with joy and gratitude each day, even when it's challenging. I'm going to go back and end with that Pedro Uribe prayer. Nothing is more practical than finding God, than falling in love in a quite absolute and final way. What you are in love with, what seizes your imagination, will affect everything. It will decide what will get you out of bed in the morning, what you do with your evenings, how you spend your weekends, what you read, whom you know, what breaks your heart, and what amazes you with joy and gratitude. Fall in love, stay in love, and it will decide everything.
Caitlin, that was amazing. Thank you very much for sharing. And I forgot to mention, Caitlin plans on attending Boston College for graduate school after this year, so we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Our third speaker tonight will be Weston Fischel. Weston is a senior double majoring in accounting and computer science from Dublin, Ohio. Weston has been a member of John Carroll's varsity swim team for the past 4 years. Most recently, Weston served as a co-captain of the swim team and qualified for the NCAA championships in 2019 and 2022. Since sophomore year, Weston has been a bowler ambassador as well. After graduation, Weston will work for Deloitte as a risk and financial advisory analyst and will pursue his CPA licensure. Everyone welcome Weston Fischel.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for making time to support us and learn from our experiences at John Carroll. As a recently retired swimmer, or swammer, if you will, I want to clarify just a couple of points. My shoulders have made it more difficult to find clothes that fit, We do shave our entire bodies, men included, but only for our championship meets. We do not do that all the time. And we do eat a lot. My dinner was usually the size of 2 Chipotle burritos with chips, give or take. And it is true that swimmers cannot run. We are pretty graceful underwater, but when it comes to land sports, you can count us out. The end of the story that I'm about to share with you guys tonight happened last week. I genuinely believe in my mantra to the extent that I applied to speak tonight before the finale to this story even happened. What you do in the dark brings you into the light. What you do in the dark brings you into the light. My class of swimmers here at John Carroll aimed to bring Carroll into the national spotlight for the first time in decades. I personally ate, slept, and breathed that goal ever since I committed to swim here. After graduating high school, I swam on my club team, and I coached a summer league age group team in my hometown called the Dublin Dolphins. And I wanted to slack off that entire summer so badly so that I can enjoy my last season on a club team that had no swim meets, and it had no relationship with John Carroll at all. The only people that I knew that summer were like the head coach of the Dublin Dolphins, a man named Tanner, and another age group coach. His name was Graham. Well, I'm glad I did not slack off that summer, because that summer laid the foundation for a very prideful season at John Carroll. I scored major points for the team year-round, and I realized it was my time out of the eyes of John Carroll that allowed me to succeed when I set foot on campus and allowed me to take one step closer to that national level dream. What I did in the dark brought me into the light. What you do in the dark will bring you into the light. So the next time that you're transitioning from one chapter of your life to another, seniors, optimizing your downtime will set you up for immediate success wherever you land. The temptation for off-season slacking got worse the following summer. I no longer swam for a club team, and I no longer coached the Dublin Dolphins. Rather, I swam at 5 a.m. every single morning with the middle-aged masters group, because that was the only time that worked with my internship. And no offense to any of the adults in this room, but that transition from training with friends, outdoors, at sunset, to swimming inside with these strangers at the butt crack of dawn was really depressing. Nonetheless, I pressed forward. And that sophomore season I had following that summer was even more successful. This time, I swam onto a relay that not only won the event at OACs, but qualified for NCAAs. And I vividly remember the first 10 minutes after that race. I was waving to my parents, everyone was congratulating us. I went up to my best friend Christian and I was like, "We did it, man, we're going to nationals." And I jumped into the warm down pool smiling, realizing we did it. I had a deja vu moment right there. What I did in the dark brought me into the light. So if your time for growth is lonely, inconvenient, and involves old people, take it. Take it and run. Because it is every little moment that can add up for your time to shine. 2 days before flying out to NCAAs, the meet was canceled for COVID. Within a matter of one weekend, I lost everything. That once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a team that motivated me, a campus I called my home, and a pool I considered my own room. You can forget about my grades. I was about to go there, but no. The only good thing that came out of that spring was from my coach. He said I was selected to be a team captain, but that selection came as he retired, so that was probably part of his suicide mission. We'll see. But I'm sure everyone here understands that insane temptation to slack off that spring. I had lost so much, and all of you did too, but I chose to forget about the opportunities that we missed and instead dream about the opportunities to come, because I knew I was not in the dark alone and that the light would shine again. I couldn't swim that summer, so I ran and biked. And like I said, swimmers can't run, so that went extremely well. I was in the darkest place I had ever been in, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Once more, though, I pressed forward, and I am not going to give prizes for anyone who can guess the outcome of that season because it was stellar. This time I anchored a relay, and anchoring is arguably the most important spot on relays, but NCAA's was already canceled that year, which means I had one more year for that national level dream, my senior year. I cannot stress this enough. What you all do in the dark will bring you into the light. When literally everything is against you, remember you're not alone. And chances are, if you can do more than the people next to you, you will come out on top when the light shines again. This season is when everything fell into place. Remember Tanner, the head coach of the Dublin Dolphins? He's now the head coach at John Carroll. And remember Graham, my lifelong teammate? He's now the graduate assistant. I had a high school teammate I swam with my whole life. He committed to John Carroll, and I swam all summer with him, and it was the best summer ever. The pools reopened, I couldn't be happier, and as soon as I got on campus, I was living in that pool. If I was not training, I was setting up equipment, I was cleaning, I was filling up waters, you name it. I was all in for the team, but the pattern broke. My mid-season meet was notably worse than any other season I had. So months ahead of my last OACs, Tanner flipped my training program on me that I've been sticking to my whole life. And I trusted him with everything in me with only one more chance at NCAAs. He told me 2 weeks before that meet, OACs, he said, because of your commitment to this program over the past 4 years, your work ethic in the pool and your leadership outside of the pool, we would consider having you as an alternate on the national team if you do not directly qualify. In that moment, my head was spinning, like my dream was coming true in that moment, right? We agreed that as long as I did not bomb my meet, I would be a part of the national team. Then I bombed my conference meet. I'm serious, I bombed it. I did not do well. I swam onto no relay and was nowhere near close enough to an individual national cut. After celebrating the men's and women's 6th straight conference title, I made a retirement post on Instagram and broke down in tears, wishing I could redo my last ever race in Akron at OACs. 2 days after that sad, sad night, Tanner sat me down in his office again, and he said, that meet did not go well for you. And I'm thinking, yeah, I know. But he said, because of everything you've done for this program, your season should not be over yet. We are extending you the alternate position on the national team. At least that's what I took away. I was going through like the best whiplash ever, if that's even a thing. You best believe, from that moment on, I did everything I could to make that national team proud. We trained over spring break, so while I was dreaming of going to Lottie, I was stretching, eating well, resting, missing out on those opportunities, knowing my dream was about to come true. And it wasn't until the next week, when we got to NCAAs, when Tanner told me that I was going to be a part of that relay. Because I made every single second count over spring break, I went from swammer to alternate to competitor at the national level in a matter of 3 weeks. Last weekend, I swam my last ever race, for real this time, in Indianapolis at the national championship. So, the takeaway here, what you do in the dark will bring you into the light. Everything you have ever done and continue to do will bring you into the light one way or another. My name is Weston Fischel, and I thank you again for making time to support me and hear a story that means the world to me. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Weston. And your successes here at John Carroll, truly a testament to your hard work. And we know you'll be successful for years to come. Next up, we will hear from Catherine Lowby. Catherine is a senior from Clarkston, Michigan, majoring in management and human resources with a minor in mathematics. She's the Vice President of SHRM, a financial advisor for Savvy Headbands, and a member of the Carroll Faith Communities, and a worker at the JCU Recreation Desk. After graduation, Catherine plans to work for L3 Harris in Rochester, New York, as a human resources business partner. Please join me in welcoming Catherine Rotley.
Weston's a bit taller than I am, so we'll just lower this down here a little bit. Thanks. Thanks, Brady. So I was thinking about what I was going to say, which naturally was yesterday about noon, a little last minute there. I was like, okay, where should I start? And I knew I wanted to start with 8 facts because I recognize you don't know me. So I was like, okay, I'll start with that. And I started writing down on this piece of paper and kind of went from there. And then everything just kind of fell into place. So we're just going to roll with these 8 facts. But the reason I chose 8 was because I was like, okay, what number should I pick? And then I was like, okay, number that goes with John Carroll, 1886. I'm like, okay, wow, 1,800 facts. We'd be here for hours. Also, I can't think of that many facts about myself, so we're not going to do that. So then I kept thinking about other numbers, and I was like, oh, there's 8 dorms. 8, done. So that's how we got to 8. So first, like Brady said, so I'll start with my name and we'll get to my major, but Brady already said it, but we'll get there in a second. So my name's Catherine. I'm from Clarkston, Michigan, which is a suburb of Detroit if you're not familiar with Michigan. But I was a nerd and I knew in 8th grade that John Carroll was where I wanted to go. And so I remember thinking like, well, in 8th grade my parents were like, you should probably start thinking about college. And I'm like, I'm 12, so okay, let's see here. So I was like, okay, let's start with what I know. Well, both of my parents went to John Carroll, and so did my aunt and uncle and my godmother, so I'm like, okay, perfect, let's start here. And I kind of knew what I wanted. Like, I went to public school, but I was like, I think I want to try something different than public education. And so I remember laying in bed one night, just looking on the web, kind of seeing, like, okay, what's John Carroll all about? And in that moment, I was like, this is perfect. Like, I knew exactly this is where I wanted to go. And all my other friends were like, you're 12, how do you know this? And I'm like, I just know. And so I only applied here, and I got in, and when I got accepted, it was a done deal. And so I came to John Carroll, and really since that first tour, yes, I toured in 8th grade. Since that first tour, I just knew. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like you understand, but I don't know how to explain it. So it really felt like home. I think one of the biggest things that I'm excited for going forward is that my sister is going to be a freshman, so the lobbies are 4 for 4, and I'm excited to see the Carroll experience through her eyes, kind of, one more time. So when I came to Carroll, I didn't know anyone. No one from my high school came here except like 2 kids from the private school, but I didn't really know them. And so I had like a friend of a friend who was going here, and we like met once in 7th grade at a birthday party. And so I was like, okay, I'll room with her. That's a true story. We did. And so I was like, perfect, I'll just room with her. And so we got here, and think of like the best roommate living situation you've ever experienced times 6. Like, that was living with her. Like, she was amazing. So the first night of college, we went to the first night frenzy, and we got the popcorn, we did the photo booth, and the shaved ice, all that stuff. And so I still have those pictures from the photo booth. That photo strip is hanging in my room today. We went to the Welcome Back concert, and that picture of us as Jesse McCartney, also framed in my room. She was just really the best. So, like, when you come back from a long day of class and you're just gonna be like, oh, listen to what happened, or you have some gossip you want to share, like, she was always there to listen and to hear it. Every Friday afternoon we would watch movies together at 2 or 3 p.m., which I would usually fall asleep during, but she would watch the rest without me, which was good. We'd watch movies, we'd do homework, we'd sit on the couches in the common room, we'd chat with the other girls on our floor. Like, it was amazing. After that first semester, my roommate actually ended up leaving, and she decided that college wasn't for her, but she really made those first 3 months so much easier. So yeah, like I said, we spent a lot of time with the girls who lived on the basement floor of Campion, and I think as I was reflecting back, this was probably, like, being there on the basement floor was probably one of the moments I knew this is where I'm meant to be. Like, I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. I felt like I had gained 30 new sisters, and from someone who only comes from sisters, this was amazing. So it was very convenient. And I think after reflecting back, what I realized, like, why was that so impactful, is because I think it really changed my life. Like, I realized that it changed how I see people that I'm put into community with. So whether that's your family, your friends, a relationship at work, at church. We're called to be men and women who are formed with others. And we're called to meet people right where we are. But as I was thinking about that too, I was like, holy cow, that's a pretty lofty summoning, okay? So I was like, okay, let's see how we can do that. And I was looking back, and I'm like, hold on, like, we're not trying to launch a rocket. Like, this is things that have been done, like, I've seen people do to me. And I was like, who did that? Those girls on that floor. So, I mean, it doesn't, like I said, we're not launching a rocket. Like, it's as simple as asking them, like, hey, do you want to paint nails with me? Or, like, I'm watching Friends, do you want to come sit with me? Or, let's go get some Dunkin' today. Like, it's as simple as extending that to someone and saying, how was your day? And I think that's exactly what those girls taught me. So after that experience, I hope and pray for me and for others, and for you guys too, that going forward we can model that welcoming behavior to other people just like those girls did to me. So that was only fact one. But don't worry, not all these facts are that long. So the second fact is that my major is management and human resources, as Brady said. So I originally started out with a math major and a business minor. Realized quickly that that wasn't up for me. Switched it to a math minor. And I was flipping through the minor courses, for Boulder, and I just picked one. It was MHR 352, which was the entry-level course with Dr. Dackner. And I really, really enjoyed it, more than I thought I would. And I didn't really care for the policies, which a lot of times people are like, what, HR is all about policies. What I cared about more was about crafting jobs and cultures and environments that people can be really drawn to and can latch on to in their work environment. But, we're in this class, and I'm like, I don't really, we're talking about all these policies, but it feels like you'd come into an organization and, the culture would already be built. You're not necessarily coming into a startup, So I went to talk to her in office hours to figure out, okay, what does HR really do on a daily basis? And she was explaining it to me, and I was kind of like, okay, I understand, I kind of don't understand, but this was in October of the fall semester, so I'm like, there's still a lot more of the course left, I'm just gonna kind of wait and see what happens. So it's like, okay, cool. And then a couple weeks later, she sends me an email about an internship opportunity, and I'm like, oh boy. And so she's like, you should really apply, you were asking me about HR and what this looks like in real life, you should really apply. And I'm like, thank you so much, but in my head I'm like, no way, I don't even have a car, I just don't feel emotionally ready for this, no. And so I was talking to my parents, and they encouraged me to apply, and they're like, apply, you might not even get it, it might be a moot point. And I'm like, you're right. So I was like, okay, I'll apply. And so part of the application, what really all the application was emailing Mike Quinn, if anyone's met him, was emailing Mike Quinn about why you're interested in this opportunity. So I did. I applied. My parents came up and helped me pick out a suit and everything. I attended the interview, which by the way was 4 hours long. I missed class, which I never do. It was a very big deal. And I was like, okay. And so I'm like, okay, good, that's behind me. And then a couple weeks later, the hiring manager called and said that I had gotten the position. I was like, wow. So in January of 2020, I began interning at Omnova Solutions, which has recently become Synthomer. I started in their corporate office, but then have recently switched their manufacturing plants. So I currently still intern there at a plant in Jeanette, which is outside of Pittsburgh, where they make different laminates and films. And it's been a very transformative experience. So I won't bog you down with the details of what I did there, but there's a couple things I've learned, and I guess the reason I'm sharing these learnings is because I connect them with John Carroll, because that's how I got that opportunity. So hopefully that makes sense. But something I learned is to always put yourself out there. I think oftentimes myself, others were like, oh, I can't do it, I don't have a car, or I don't live in that city, or it just wouldn't work out. But I'd encourage you to take that step, because you never know how it's really going to change your life. And this experience has. Because of this, I feel like I have a really clear idea of where I want to go in the next 5 years, and I'm really thankful for that. Second is to advocate for yourself, something that Mike told me in a meeting. This is a direct quote. He goes, Catherine, business is a competitive sport. Wow, that was accurate. It's cutthroat out there. And every day you have to get up, you have to grind, and it's cutthroat, it's a competitive sport. But I think that is exactly, that's not new to John Carroll alums. We're well prepared for that. Next is to not chase money and chase passions. The intern pay rate obviously doesn't have you chasing money, but I think John Carroll has given me an opportunity to develop passions that I necessarily would not have been able to develop at another school, whether that's knitting, whether that's running, being involved in church, coffee, if you call that a hobby. I'm thankful for that because I think I wouldn't have found that at Michigan State or something like that. John Carroll has also helped me to find my next opportunity, like Brady talked about a little bit. A teacher posted it on our LinkedIn group about an opportunity to work with some alums, and once again, I was like, I don't know. I've never been to Rochester, New York, so I should probably apply. And I did. So like Brady said, after graduation, I'll be moving to Rochester to work with L3 Harris, which if you're not familiar, they work with the government and NASA to build rockets and other government vehicles. So I'll be working as an HR business partner in their manufacturing setting to make the technology that goes into that. We'll make walkie-talkies and night vision glasses for the U.S. Army. So I'm really excited about this, and I'm excited about this next chapter, but once again, like, this wouldn't have happened without Carol. So that was a really long fact, and I promise we're almost at the end. But what I'm taking away from this internship experience in this next chapter is to really live life with abandon. The opportunities that John Carroll presents are amazing. Like Weston said, like being a part of like a swim team, like going to a new student org, meeting a new roommate, starting a relationship. Like all those opportunities are really awesome, and John Carroll does a great job of presenting them. But you have to take that step and that courage to actually like say, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to that club. I don't know anyone, but I'm going to go. Or sit by yourself in the caf. Like it takes courage to do those things. I think what we have to remember is that the same courage it takes to go on to this next chapter, to start a new job, to buy a dog, whatever that looks like, that courage it takes to do those things are already inside of you. It's the same courage it took to go to that new student org. So I think that's really what I'm taking from that. So that was a long fact, so we're going to breeze through the next 5 facts. My minor is math, like Brady said. Sophomore year, I lived in Burnett Hall, which was very luxurious, and now I currently live in Murphy, which is equally as luxurious. I've only gotten 2 parking tickets. Yes, they were the same weekend within hours of each other, and yes, I still need to pay them off. That's actually what I'm doing tomorrow. I work at the rec desk. Like Brady said, that's a really great job, so if you're looking for a job, highly recommend. I also have every Inside JCU and every speed bump that's ever been sent these last 4 years because I'm like petrified to delete them. Like something might happen where I need to know what was on that Inside JCU from like freshman year. So they're all in my inbox. Okay, now to my last fact, which is the last story. So like I said, I live in a single Murphy, which has really been a transformative experience. I actually took all of last year and did classes remote the entire year from my parents' house in Clarkston, which was equally a very good experience. Got into cooking, hung out with my dog, played with my sister, met some new friends in my hometown, got COVID, watched some TV, painted my nails a bajillion times, things like that, which I think are similar to all of our experiences. But I couldn't help feel like, especially in the spring semester, I was missing out on my friends and, seeing what they were doing on Instagram and things like that. I was like, oh, I wish I could be there. So I was like, okay, I kind of felt a little defeated. But then I also knew that when I was coming back, I was going to live on campus, and most of my friends had moved off campus. So those two things coupled together, I was really nervous about coming back to school. But I decided to stick with my plan and return, and it's really been one of the best years at Carroll so far. It's really pushed me to meet new people, to lean into other things that I enjoy, those things I developed in COVID, those things I like doing, lean into those things and develop them even more. I attend every CFC meeting. I've met friends on my floor. I've gotten super comfortable eating by myself. So if anyone's looking to go to lunch, let me know. I like to hang out with the other HR kids a lot and do fun stuff like that. And I think I've really learned, or I've been able to have like a hybrid experience, like I feel like I'm living on my own, but I'm still living in college. And it's been really, really great. For some reason coming back, I thought that the Carroll community wouldn't deliver, that I would just be left high and dry and it would be sucky. But I don't know why I thought that, because that's not the Carroll community that I know and that we know and love. So I think what I'm taking away from this final year is that everything that I thought I could need was really provided for me. Like obviously, yes, we have like shelter and food and stuff, but I'm talking about like the things that fuel our souls, like your friendships, your hobbies. What I thought wouldn't be there really was there. So whether you put your trust in fate, God, karma, your next door neighbor, know that everything will work out and it will be provided for you. So I've probably been talking for a long time, and I hope you followed all this, but if you're walking away from this talk, I want you to take these 3 things away, because these are the 3 things I'm taking away from my experience here. When things feel like there's no way for it to work out, know that God or karma or your neighbor will provide it for you in ways that you never dreamed were possible. Second, don't be afraid to put yourself out there to meet a new friend, buy a new house, get a new job, call an old family member who you've missed. Do it. Don't be afraid to do it, because you never know how it could change your life. And remember that the courage you need to take that first step is already inside of you. Number 3, I hope we can always create a welcoming environment for those who are around us and those that we meet. And I pray that we can meet them exactly where we are. Carol has made me feel welcome and accepted literally since 8th grade. So I pray that we have the grace to do the same things to those we meet. Thank you guys for everything, for listening. Onward on.
Thank you, Catherine. That was awesome. And one thing I love that you said is just leaning in. And I think that's something that we can all take away moving forward, especially here at John Carroll. Our 5th and final speaker tonight of this event will be senior Nick Nuzzo from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Nick is a senior double majoring in finance and economics. At John Carroll, Nick has been a member of the Honors Program, the Honor Student Association, and the Alpha Kappa Psi Business Fraternity. Upon graduation, Nick will work for the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center as a financial analyst. Everyone welcome Nick Nuzzo.
All right. Hello, everybody. I want to thank you all for coming out and listening to some great stories from some great people and spending time with the John Carroll community. I'm super excited to be able to get up here, share my story, partly because I love to hear myself talk. So this is super exciting. Also, this is probably the closest I'll ever come to giving a TED Talk, so I'm going to enjoy that. But that's enough for the jokes, in case like Will Smith is around. But in all seriousness, it's important we share our stories and experiences as men and women for others, and especially towards underclassmen who are still navigating their way through school. I want to first begin by thanking some very important people in my life, above all God, who has blessed me more than I can even imagine. My parents, who have loved and supported me unconditionally. Because of them, I've wanted for nothing, and it wasn't until recently that I've realized how much they've truly done for me. In that same breath, my siblings, who have been a stabilizing force in my life, I couldn't be luckier to have you 3. I'd also like to thank the teachers, staff, friends, and all who have impacted my John Carroll experience. And last but certainly not least, my amazing girlfriend, Alyssa. You came into my life when I needed you the most and continuously helped me face life's greatest challenges. So, to start it off, my story, like most, starts as a freshman coming to John Carroll. I was ready to leave home and experience something new. College would be my first time leaving home, and I was ready. So move-in day came. I got my room all set up, had a fresh wardrobe, I was looking good, and I was ready. But then my parents left, and I had no idea what to do next. I remember sitting in my room for the rest of the night wondering where I go from here. And really, for the first time in my life, I felt alone. That feeling would persist for the entirety of my freshman year and into sophomore year. It was really hard assimilating to college life. Meeting people, starting classes, juggling extracurriculars, and all while trying to find time for a social life that was exhausting. During this time, not only did I feel alone, but I was afraid. I was afraid to eat the food in the cafeteria, which I'm probably not alone in, to go out. I was afraid to meet with professors, to join clubs, to socialize. So I resorted to where I felt most comfortable, which was my dorm room. I spent most of my freshman year in my dorm room, equating it to a prison cell rather than a dorm building. Most weekends I went home because it was easier than facing my fears of socializing or, God forbid, doing something out of my comfort zone. Every day was a struggle, and I found myself questioning what I was doing here. From my perspective, it seemed like everybody else was doing so good. My social media feeds were filled with people going out and doing fun stuff and living what seemed to be the ideal college experience. I considered transferring, but was urged by family and friends and advisors to stick it out for the year. But I needed something more. So I joined Carroll Faith Communities to help get my faith journey back on track. I never spoke much, but just being in the presence of others helped me feel more comfortable on campus. It also taught me how the students at John Carroll strive to be men and women for others, and that was a community I wanted to stay a part of. Likely because of CFC and the friends I met there, I ended up staying and told myself that sophomore year would be better. Part of that was true. Sophomore year started exactly how I wanted it to. I made more friends, I went out, was doing great in school, took my first ride on Cabby, invited him, but I guess he didn't show up. No, I didn't. But like life always does, it throws a gut punch when you're least expecting it. In October of that year, I got pretty sick. I was having severe stomach problems, which briefly put me in the hospital. Fortunately, though, I got better, but I lost a part of myself along the way. I fell back into fear and extreme anxiety. I refused to leave my room, to eat, to socialize. My anxiety quickly turned to depression, and I found myself questioning whether life was worth living at all. This was undoubtedly the lowest point in my life, and I wasn't sure how to move forward. Fortunately, though, my mom stepped in and helped me get the help that I needed through both the John Carroll Counseling Center as well as a private therapist. And with their help, I got practicing in managing fear and anxiety and depression. And without that kind of support, above all from my family and loved ones, I don't know where I would be today. So over time, I got better at managing my anxiety and fear. I learned to cope and try and get out more. And honestly, some of the best times in my John Carroll experience were with my two friends, Dan and Dan, who would come to my room to watch movies or just have dinner with me in the cafeteria, or hang out with friends like Jamie and Victoria and Lauren and all the girls on Silsby. I know you know where you're at. All such simple things, and certainly not the ideal college experience, but it helped me, and all of them made me feel welcomed and comfortable and accepted. Sadly, though, shortly thereafter, the COVID-19 outbreak sent us home. And like millions of Americans, my fear of getting sick and contracting COVID-19 dominated my life at home. I was now in my third year of college, secluded to a bedroom. And while the comforts of being home helped ease some of my fears and anxieties, not being able to socialize with family and friends really took a toll. So another year isolated passed me by. Fortunately, though, the wonderful people and administrators at John Carroll worked very hard and had us back in the spring of my junior year. And while COVID was still a pressing issue, I did my best to assimilate. However, my return would end up being very different than I had expected. I experienced a moment, or should I say moments, in my return to campus that entirely reshaped my view on not only college, but life itself. First, my dad, whether intentionally or not, taught me a lot about fear. He told me once something along the lines of, "You have nothing to be afraid of. If you're going to be afraid of every little thing, you're never going to get to live." That sat with me for a very long time, and that, coupled with his fearless, don't give a you-know-what kind of attitude, taught me that fear is something that can be overcome. The second moment I experienced was with a friend of mine who some of you may know, Mark Grabowski. Last spring, Mark invited me to go on a walk with him to get out of my room and get some air and some sun. The conversation started as typical chit-chat, but quickly turned into a deep heart-to-heart conversation about our families, fears, and faith. What I learned on that walk was that I'm not alone in the feelings that I have. There are others in the John Carroll community that have faced the same trials and tribulations that I do, and that's okay. Mark and I talked about how overcoming fear can sometimes start with a little faith, and a little faith can move mountains. Mark's guidance entirely reframed my thinking, and from then on, I began turning my fears to God, attending church, and trusting that I can overcome anything thrown my way. He also urged me to find a phrase or a saying to repeat to myself when I'm afraid or having anxiety, For me, that phrase was "In God I Trust," and has been a phrase I've recited every day since. Mark is the embodiment of the John Carroll community. He exemplifies what it means to be a man that lives for others and will always be somebody I consider to be a dear friend. It's people like Mark who make this campus a very special place, and more so it's people like Mark who bring about the greatest changes in communities like ours. Since that conversation, I've worked hard towards overcoming fear every day. And I believe that overcoming fear can be one of the most freeing feelings a person can have. Knowing that you just conquered something that previously held you down is an unbelievable experience. To me, fear is the greatest killer of dreams. It's the voice inside your head that holds you back, that tells you you're not good enough. Fear will control your life if you let it, and that control will leave you feeling helpless at every turn. Every time you let fear dictate your life, you help that fear grow bigger and stronger. The only way you and I can change, the only way we can break out of our fear cycles, is to step right into the face of our fears, to look it in the eye and push ourselves to move past it. I chose to speak today to you all, young or old, to tell you that you are not alone in your fears, to let you know that you have a community here that will help you confront your fears and move past them. I spent 2.5 years at John Carroll living in fear, and I regret it. I regret the opportunities that I had and did not take, the events I was invited to and did not attend, and the moments I missed because I was afraid of what might or might not happen. So for the underclassmen in the room, I want to tell you, do not let these 4 years pass you by. Take an active role in your life and do the things you might have never thought you could do. And for those graduating, those entering the workforce, or even those retired, take time to recognize what you may be afraid of and then go and face it. As cliche as it is, life is so short. We don't have the time to sit around and be afraid. So again, for all of you living in fear, struggling with fear, or just afraid of what's next, it's time to take back control. Know what your fears might be holding you back from, and then go and take it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick, and we applaud you for your strength and courage. Definitely empowering. Thank you all again for joining us here tonight. We just want to reiterate our thankfulness for the Edward Muldoon Center for Entrepreneurship and the Tim Russert Department of Communication for helping put on this event. We hope you enjoyed this event this evening, and strongly encourage you guys to come back April 25th, so in a couple weeks from now, to join us for our final Grad at Grad presentation. We're going to be having more food there, ideally cater some food, and offer more of kind of a communion afterwards for everyone to join in and conversate. We will hear from Margaret Skubik, Kira Riley, Sean Patterson, Riley Haas, and Celeste Hamper at our final Grad at Grad speaker series. But thank you all again for joining us tonight, and have a great rest of your evening.